All right, let's go ahead and start. Good morning. I am glad to see that so many of you were so willing to join us this morning. And please let your friends and neighbors know that we will have another town hall tomorrow afternoon at 6 o'clock. That would be October 8th at 6 p.m. for those who can't join us this morning. I'm Terry Harness. If you don't know me, I'm the principal at Springdale Park. And I've got a lot of wonderful colleagues that are on this call or on this Zoom with us this morning. So I want to quickly introduce everyone, and I'm just going to go in order of who I see on my screen right now. So we have our STEM coach, Kristen Simbita, with us. We have our special ed lead teacher, Nathan Stevenson, with us. We have the amazing Jennifer Tony. Dr. Tony is with us. We have our new counselor, Hannah Robinson. And then we have our program administrator, Melanie Johnson, our program admin at the Kindergarten Center. And last but not, two people, we have Sarah Pruitt, our humanities coach, and we have one of our brand new colleagues this year. We have Nurse Mac, who is at the Kindergarten Center with us. So we're going to be here answering all of your questions and doing what we can to support you and give you as much information as possible about the face-to-face return that will be offered or proposed through Atlanta Public Schools. So we're going to talk a little bit about, or a lot about, that return and what it will look like. So before we begin, I do want to go through just a list of norms. I want everyone to help me out by recognizing that our Spark community, as great and as amazing as it is, we are all entitled to our own opinions, and we all have our own opinions and perspectives about what is in the absolute best interest of our kids. I am just simply asking for this not to be the place to debate it. So we want to just make sure that you understand we have been charged with making something work, and that is what our administrative team has done, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that when our kids start walking back through the doors of Springdale Park, that it's going to be a great but very safe experience for every one of them. I also want to point out a few norms. I want us all to do our best to be present because I'm going to go over a lot of information, and we're going to try to honor your time by not having to repeat either questions or repeat answers to questions that have already been answered. So be present. I want you to value and recognize everyone's perspective. Keep a student-centered mindset. We are not just making decisions for the Kindergarten Center or for main campus. We're making decisions for all of Spark, so all grade levels. I want us to be solution-oriented. I want us to assume goodwill of each and every individual. That is super, super important. And last but not least, I don't think you will have any questions, but if you do, I'm going to ask that you put your questions in the chat. And I promise, and this is a pledge that we all will make, and that's why our admin team is here, we are going to answer every single question. There will not be a question left that goes unanswered. You might receive an "I'm not sure," but you will get an answer for that question. So I think if we can agree to all of these norms, we will be good to go. All right, what are we going to be discussing today? So we will talk a little bit about something that rolled out yesterday called the Spark Stay Safe Pledge. We're going to talk about the return to face-to-face instruction and the options that you have to choose from. We're going to talk about the Declaration of Intent. That Declaration of Intent is something that all parents will have to fill out on behalf of your child to declare what your choice will be. And I'm going to go through those choices in a moment. We're going to talk about Spark, what it meant to be Spark pre-COVID, and what it means to be Spark during COVID or in COVID times. And last but not least, we will discuss how parents can help the Spark community, how parents can help Spark, our teachers, our administrative team, etc. All right, so I'm just going to jump right in, and we're just going to hit the ground running with what is the Atlanta Public Schools proposed plan. So if you were part of the board meeting on Monday night or Monday mid-afternoon into the evening, you heard about the newly proposed plan that APS has put out. They have proposed that beginning on October 26th, all pre-K through 5th grade students will have the option to return to face-to-face instruction. That would be, and it would be for 4 total days, 4 out of the 5 regular school days. So students at the elementary level get to attend face-to-face on Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. And on Wednesday, that will be considered an asynchronous learning day, where learning will still occur. It will not be in a live session with their teachers on Zoom like we have been accustomed to. I will give you a little bit more information about those asynchronous days. So I'm sure you might have some questions already about that, but hold tight. The elementary school day will begin like the regular school days, pre-COVID Spark times. So we will start at 8 o'clock and the day will go to 2:30. So 8 to 2:30 for students face-to-face. And for students who are virtual, we're going to add an hour back to the end of the day. So all of our kids can still have an equitable amount of time and instruction throughout their elementary virtual and or face-to-face experience. So again, October 26th, all pre-K through 5th grade students will have the choice to come back face-to-face 4 out of the 5 days a week from 8 to 2:30. So that is the newly proposed plan by Atlanta Public Schools. Now, there are 3 choices, and I really need parents to pay attention to these choices because this is what you have 3 options to choose from, and you have to choose one option. You have until October 12th to make your choice for your family, for your child, for your student. So you have until October 12th. The 3 choices are this. Number 1, you could do virtual with your school. So you could do virtual with Spark. Number 2, you could do in-person with your school. That means you could do in-person instruction at Spark. Or number 3, you could choose virtual instruction with Atlanta Virtual Academy, which is not Springdale Park. It is APS online option for virtual instruction. I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth on each one of these choices. As I said, for your first choice, it's virtual with your school, so virtual with Spark. What does this mean? Students will continue to work virtually at Springdale. Students will be assigned a Spark staff member to continue with virtual school. This is for families who don't feel comfortable sending their children back to school, but ultimately plan to rejoin their enrolled school in the future. All right. So if you don't feel good about the numbers right now associated with COVID, you don't have to send them face to face. You can continue to keep them at home and they would still be receiving the same type of virtual instruction that you have witnessed day in and day out thus far when we started in August. I want to point one thing out to you though. It says your child will be assigned a Spark staff member to continue with virtual school. That means, listen to me, get ready for it. That means that it may not be your child's current teacher. I'm going to say it one more time to make sure that we're super, super clear. It may not be your child's current teacher because keep in mind, in your child's homeroom, everyone will have a choice. Some may choose face-to-face, some may choose virtual, and the teacher also will be given a choice. And your teacher may choose face-to-face, or your teacher may choose virtual. And I'll go ahead and answer this now. I can't tell you what the teachers are going to choose. They right now are going through the process of declaring their own intent, and then human resources have to approve or disapprove of their request. So until we get that information from HR, I can't tell you who your child's teacher will be in a virtual setting or in a face-to-face setting. The second option is Spark face-to-face. So this means that students will come to Springdale Park 4 out of 5 days a week. Again, that Wednesday is considered an asynchronous day and will be used for deep cleaning. So again, we could possibly have a number of students come to Spark face-to-face. Wednesday will be all asynchronous instruction at home. So the Springdale Park custodians can do a deep clean of Spark to continue to help keep our children and our staff, teachers, etc., as healthy as possible. Students will return to a regular full day at Spark from 8 to 2:30. So this choice is designed for families who feel comfortable with returning students to a face-to-face in-school environment. It provides the opportunity for students to return to campus and interact directly but safely with their teachers and their classmates. Okay? Now, I want to make sure I say it again. There is no guarantee that your child's current teacher will be teaching them face-to-face. It will be a Springdale Park staff member, and it could be a completely different person than what your child has already had. The reason again for that is because teachers get to choose as well, and they may either choose to stay virtual working from home based on personal choices because they have a sick family member at home that they care for, or because someone may be expecting to have a baby. Things of that nature, they have to make choices, so they may choose at home or face-to-face. So I cannot guarantee that your child will have the same teacher that they currently have for virtual instruction.
Mr. Harness, let me pause you there for just a second because we actually have some really good questions about those two options. With all kids who choose option 1, virtual with Spark, will they remain with their same classmates?
No, I cannot guarantee that either, because you have to keep in mind every child in that class will be making, or every family in that class will be making a choice whether they come back face-to-face or virtual. And when you think about us having to maintain social distancing within every classroom, we want to make it as equitable as possible, but still maintaining or using the guidance provided by CDC in relation to social distancing. We might not be able to have every child who currently is in a classroom with your child in that same class. I'll give you an example. If I'm homeroom teacher A and there's homeroom teacher B, homeroom teacher A may have 10 children come back face to face. Homeroom teacher B might have 20 children come back face to face. We would not be able to accommodate social distancing for that class of 20. So we will have to remove some of the kids and place them in homeroom teacher A so we can provide social distancing. So there is no guarantee that your kids would even be in the same classroom as the kids that they are currently in. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, we have some other questions. Will virtual kids also have an asynchronous Wednesday?
Virtual kids would also have an asynchronous Wednesday, yes. And again, that is for equity reasons. We want to make sure, and the district wants to ensure that every student is getting an equitable amount of instructional time, whether it is virtual and or face-to-face. Everyone will have an asynchronous Wednesday.
Is your objective to have a Spark virtual teacher instruct virtually only and a Spark face-to-face teacher instruct only in person?
That is most definitely, and that's a great question. Repeat it one more time just for everyone, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. So is your objective to have a Spark virtual teacher instruct virtually only and a Spark face-to-face teacher instruct only in person?
Yeah, the absolute answer is that is our goal. That is definitely our goal. And I think it would be helpful to have on a grade level someone who is dedicated to virtual, and then other teachers who are dedicated to face-to-face. But the concern is this: we won't know who will do that until we get all the data back. We need to know what the families have chosen, and we need to know what all of our teachers have chosen, and then we need to make super informed decisions on who will teach virtual, who will teach face-to-face, and how can we make this puzzle fit together.
There's another question along the same lines that's kind of multifaceted, so I'll kind of go with all of it.
Okay.
What happens if an entire grade levels teacher chooses virtual, and then will new teachers be brought on board to teach face-to-face? Will teachers' choices be respected, or will they be pressured for a certain number to step up for each model?
That was a tough question. Way to throw that one out early Wednesday morning. So let me say this. I have no intention, I do not want to get into the business of pressuring teachers to do one thing or another. Every teacher who chooses to request to be able to work from home, they have legitimate reasons to do so. And I don't want to put them in a precarious predicament where they have to make those choices like that. If they choose telework and if they are approved by HR, it's not a Terry Harness approval. If they are approved by HR, then they will be able to work virtually. Now, going back to that one question, or the start of that question, what if everyone in the grade level chooses virtual and or face-to-face? We're going to have to cross that hurdle when we get here. And again, that would be a very interesting puzzle piece that we will have to figure out. My initial thought, if everyone in the grade level chose virtual, which I don't think is going to happen, but then our teachers would be teaching virtually the same way that they have been doing currently, all right? And all of those teachers would be doing virtual, but they would just be in the building teaching from their classroom. Because employees who are coming back face-to-face, they do have to return to the building clearly. And it would be the same thing even if there is an employee who is having to teach a virtual class, they would still be expected to come into the building. At least that's my understanding for right now. I hope I answered that question. That's a very tough one to answer without knowing all the data.
Another question asked you, can you elaborate on the idea of need versus want? Because both at the Board of Education meeting and yesterday's Council of In-Town Neighborhoods and Schools call, they heard the suggestion or the comment about need versus want. Can you elaborate on that?
All right, so I'm going to use that as a cue to move forward, because there's a section in the presentation where I talk a little bit about need versus want, but I want to make sure that you understand my own personal beliefs regarding that. Any other questions about the three options as of right now, Nathan?
There's some more, but I think we're going to get to some of the answers so we can just keep going. And then if we don't, we can bring them back up.
All right. And so please mark where that last question is, because I definitely want to get to the other questions. All right. So I want everyone to really follow me here. This one is a different one. The point of our town hall is to give you information as much as we can, but also to paint a picture of what school will be like when we return to Springdale Park. Our kids have been out, or not in our building since March 13th, right? That was their very last day. Most of our teachers have not been in our building since March 13th. That was their very last day. Some of the classrooms were still left the way that the children left them on that day. We still have items in our building that belong to kids, right? We had to pick up, leave, and commit to virtual and what I referred to last year as crisis learning very, very quickly. Those were different times. At the beginning of 2020, January and February, we were in Spark pre-COVID times. And if you have children who are in upper grade levels, you've experienced Spark through the years as a place that has been welcoming, energetic, engaging, fun for kids. We have seen through data and asking kids, do you like school? And over the course of the years, they have said yes. When I first got to Spark, it was more of a mediocre, meh, but now it's gotten so much better when we've asked them repeatedly. We became a five-star school. We became a five-star school because our kids expressed how much they enjoyed being in our building. I want you to remember, those were pre-COVID times. And what the kids know of Springdale Park from then will be drastically different than what they will experience when they come back face to face. And I'm not trying to be gloom and doom. I'm just trying to be very honest with all of our parents. So looking at the screen, this is Spark pre-COVID times with a very vibrant logo of Springdale Park. Spark during COVID times is going to be like Diet Spark, right? Spark Light. The difference between Coke and Coca-Cola, or if you drink Pepsi, okay, I don't want to go there, Pepsi or Diet Pepsi. But that's what it's going to be like for our kids. They will see that it physically looks like Spark, but doesn't feel like what they experienced back in the day. And the reason for that is there's going to be a lot of change in order to keep them safe and healthy, and our teachers safe and healthy at all times. So I want to make sure that you're clear, and that's what we're going to talk about today regarding how will things look differently. So let me recap those three options for you. Do all families have to declare their intent for students returning? The answer is absolutely yes. What happens if a family does not declare their intent? That means if you don't fill out that survey or complete that survey for your child is an automatic virtual at Spark option. That's it. They will be going virtual until January 19th. So if you don't complete the survey, then they will automatically be placed in a virtual setting, and that is a binding agreement. You cannot change once it is set in stone. Your child will be virtual January 19th. Again, October 12th is the deadline to fill out your survey or to fill out your declaration of intent. I will show you how to access that in just a few moments. Whenever you choose your choice, whenever you make your choice, it is binding for the remaining part of the year all the way up to January 19th. So if you choose face-to-face, they will go face-to-face till January 19th. If you choose virtual, virtual until January 19th. All right, let me make sure it's clear one more time. I'm going to finish this part, Nathan, then I'm going to come back to you. Do all grade levels have to make a choice? Yes. Kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth have to declare their intent. So you absolutely need to make a choice. All right, Nathan.
First thing, can you just clarify the third option, the virtual academy? What is that?
Sure.
How is that distinct from?
Yeah, absolutely. So the third option is the virtual academy with Atlanta Virtual. Basically, students will not be affiliated with Springdale Park. This is its own entity, its own school in a virtual setting. It's for students. Students will continue with virtual instruction through AVA. It's designed for families who wish to remain in the virtual environment regardless of shifts in delivery models at the local school. What does that mean? Let's say that we come back on October 26th, and on that very first day, a parent informs me in the afternoon that they tested positive for COVID, which meant their child was exposed to them, which also could have possibly meant that the other children in the homeroom who came back face to face are now exposed. The district will help me make a decision on, do we close a classroom or do we close the entire school based on that type of exposure to someone who happens to be positive? If that is the case, we will automatically shift to virtual. So if you choose face-to-face, there's always that slight possibility of going face-to-face virtual, face-to-face virtual, face-to-face virtual, all right? Atlanta Virtual Academy just means you're going to continue virtual the entire time with no disruptions, but it is not Spark affiliated. I hope I answered that question. And thank you for that, because I don't think I elaborated on this slide.
There's a few questions about how you continue to say that students will be taught by a staff member, or using that interchangeably for the word teacher.
No. It'll be a certified teacher. So if I say staff member, I do mean certified teacher. It would not be an instructional para, because that would not be within their scope of duties and responsibilities. So it will be an actual staff member. Now, also just making sure that it's clear that on days where a teacher is sick, it could still be a substitute. So keeping that in mind as well. But no, I do mean a certified teacher. Thank you for that.
And there's a few questions around, are there any options that a parent will know who their teacher will be?
There are not. There are not. And I wish we could give you more of that information. But there really isn't, because we're missing the pieces that we need the most in order to start placing and creating those class rosters. We need to know the parents' decisions and choices and what percentage of kids in a grade level are coming back face-to-face and virtual. And then we also need to know which teachers are coming back face-to-face or virtual. So we don't have that information, so I can't give you who will be the teacher. Can I go on, Nathan?
Let me just ask one more before you go on. So there's some questions about if people choose face-to-face and there's some disruptions, will they be switched to the virtual plan?
Well, it will go back to a virtual plan like what your child has already been experiencing at this point. We have to figure out, will it be the teacher, will their face-to-face instructor be the one who's providing that virtual class? And I think the answer at this moment would be yes, because what we don't want to do is cause the child to have to switch back and forth between different teachers from face-to-face and or virtual setting often. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to do everything that we can to not allow that to happen, but there may be some instances where that does occur. All right, Melanie, I think you had a question.
I just wanted to clarify that the choice on the declaration for intent is binding as of October 12th. But if you've already made a choice, and then after this town hall or after thinking through the options or looking at the numbers, if you want to go back in and change your choice prior to October 12th, you can still do that. But once October 12th hits, that's when the declaration becomes binding until January 19th.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on. So some of our parents probably right now are sitting there thinking, well, how do I make a choice if I don't know who the teacher is, etc.? I get it. It is a really tough decision to make these choices for your kids without having those bits of information. It's a very tough thing to do, to have a town hall with parents, as a principal, without that information. I completely understand. This is what I'm going to say to you each and every time. You need to do what you feel is in the best interest of your children, period. I know there was some really good discussion at that board meeting about the design, the differences between need versus want. I can say at Springdale Park, our teachers want our children back, right? But at this moment in time, do we need the children back? Do we need all of the children back? The answer is no, not necessarily. What I believe Jason Estevez was referring to in the board meeting was that there are some children who are struggling, deeply struggling with virtual instruction. And there are some children who are thriving within it, right? There are some children who are, they have an achievement gap that is greater than their peers. So therefore, their need to come back to face-to-face instruction may be stronger or more than other children's or other families' needs. So you really do need to ask yourself, does my child absolutely need to come back, or do I just want them to return? And that is your decision. What we at Springdale Park what we're not going to do is I'm not going to question your need versus your want, etc. That is your choice. So don't think for a second that I'm going to come up to say to someone and say, did your kid really need to come back? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to trust in every one of you to make the choice that is best for your kid. You also have to make these choices knowing that there are unknowns. You don't have all the information, but you still have to choose. And keep in mind, this is something that APS has put out there. This is not a Springdale Park thing, right? But we do have to abide by it, and we are going to abide by it because, well, Terry Harness is a rule follower, so we're going to abide by it, right? But you do have to make this choice knowing that there are unknowns. So again, what are the unknowns? We don't know what the teachers are choosing. That's a big one. And we don't know what our families are choosing regarding face-to-face or virtual. When we get both of those bits of information, and I say it as if it's little tiny bits of information, it's a lot of information, that's when we can give parents more opportunities to understand who their child will have, etc. So parents will not know which teachers will be returning. Spark will not be able to tell you if your child will be able to keep that same teacher until well after October 12th. And Spark is not going to be able to tell you which students are returning face-to-face. So we don't know what percentage of students will be coming back versus the families who come back face-to-face versus virtual until all families make that declaration. So I understand you have to think about need versus want for your family, and then you have to make a decision knowing that there are unknowns. Any questions that I need to answer right now, Nathan, or can I keep going?
You can keep going.
Okay, so one more time. This is the third time, I think, or fourth time that you've seen me put this up here. Do all families have to declare their intent? The answer is absolutely yes. Please use your voice and let us know what you prefer for your family, given all the information that I just shared with you. Let me show you really quickly where this can be found on the Spark website. So the intent to return to in-person learning, if you go to our Springdale Park website, this is the home page. And if you scroll down, literally from the pictures down, you can see under the announcement sections, there are lots of things that you can always take a look at what's going on at Spark. The very first one, intent to return, you can click on it and it will take you to the link, or it take you to information provided by the district, and there's the intent to return declaration form that you need to complete.
And Mr. Harness, go ahead and remind them that they need to do it for all of their children.
Yes, so for every child, this is not a one and done for just for your whole family. You have to do this, declare this intention for every child you have in school. Okay, so if you have 3 children, you have to complete this 3 times. I hope that makes sense.
And those decisions could be different. So you may have different decisions for different children. If you have a child that needs to be face-to-face and you know that, but another that you'd like to keep virtual because they're doing well, that's fine too. Parents can choose different decisions for different children.
Right, absolutely. And that is very, very important for our families to understand. You do not have to make the choice for, the same choice for every child. It can be different for your kids.
Mr. Harness, I do want to stop you really quickly. There have been a lot of questions about, is there a cap to the number of students that we're going to allow face-to-face, or a cap to the number of students that we would allow to be virtual?
There isn't a cap per se on either of those options, right? Spark's commitment is to make it work. That is what we're going to do. We have to make it work in some way, shape, or form. But that also means, and if you did watch the board meeting when they proposed the plan, they did say things like social distancing when feasible. So we're going to recognize right now that there might be a number of kids that come in that we're not going to be able to socially distance at all times. I will share one other thing with you really quickly. The district provided us a social distancing calendar, of how we can design our classrooms to make sure that our kids are getting the 6 feet social distancing as, suggested by the CDC, or as, required, whatever, however you want to say it, by the CDC. So for example, if I have a classroom, what we need to do is we enter the length of the classroom, the width of the classroom. We figure out what is the personal space diameter that we want each child to have, in terms of personal space all around. What is the social distancing guidelines you can place? We need to subtract any unusable feet, such as doorways and fixtures. We subtract the teacher's desk from that square footage, and then we subtract any additional spaces that are needed for teaching, such as the dry erase board or the Recordex or things of that nature. When we put that all in there, every room will have a specific student capacity based on social distancing guidelines. So for a classroom of 750 square feet, the capacity is about 12 students in that room. And you can see how they've kind of given us an idea of how to set that room up. So we are using this at Spark. We're making sure that we're doing whatever we can to distance appropriately for the kids. This is the reason why I was saying to you guys earlier that if we have one class, like right now you can see here, this room is set up for however many children that is. It says 12 student capacity, but it looks like it's got 16 on the thing. With that being said, if we have students who are well over that capacity suggested, that's the reason why we might have to move students into other rooms to make it equitable so we can provide social distancing within the homeroom at all times. I hope that was somewhat clear and not clear as mine. Can I go on, Nathan?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. All right, so again, now what I'm about to do is just kind of lay out the school day when we return face-to-face. Keeping in mind, there is a distinct difference between Spark, Vibrant, pre-COVID times and a more of a Spark Lite during COVID times, all right? So starting off the day, in the beginning of the day, we have to trust and ask our parents to do this. We need you to help us screen your children in the morning to start off. You need to see, do they have a temperature? Are they exhibiting any types of symptoms that could be COVID related in any way, shape, or form? So does your child have any sign of illness? Were you in close contact within 6 feet or more for more than 15 minutes with anyone confirmed with COVID? And if the answer is yes to any of those questions, we're going to ask you, please do not send your child to school. Instead, begin the isolation of your child and contact your healthcare provider. This is information and guidance that was put out by the district per CDC guidelines and Department of Health, the Georgia Department of Health. This is the first thing that we need you guys to do. When kids come into Spark, when they get to Spark, and we'll talk about how they get there in just a moment, when they get to Spark, we will take their temperature again before they enter our building. We want to do our best to avoid having a child in our building who has a fever. That's why we're taking the temperatures. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other things. All right, so for parents, at Springdale Park, we have the most involved parent population, period. You guys are the absolute best. You visit us often. You want to visit your kid when they're eating lunch in the cafeteria. You want to be secret reader in the classrooms. You want to come in and volunteer to help out our teachers. We are so incredibly appreciative of those things, but Spark Lite, Spark during COVID times, we have to say, I am so sorry, parents, but we cannot allow parents and or visitors into our building, all right? That is just something that is out there by the district. So that means there will be no visits for birthday parties and bringing birthday cupcakes, you know, the little ones because of our wellness policy. There will be none of those things that we are accustomed to doing at Spark. There will not be an opportunity to come and eat lunch with your children at Springdale Park. So it will change. Things will change for you, and you will see that it will be very different. Usually when we have face-to-face instruction in a traditional setting, a lot of our parents, when they bring their children to school, whether it is they walk or ride their bike or they drop off in carpools, some parents like to park in the parking lot and then walk into the building with their kids to the classroom that very first day. That cannot happen. That cannot happen. There is no walking with your child into the building to their classroom. We cannot allow that to occur. We will have to do things differently at Spark by having lots of staff members stationed to support every kid to make sure that they get to their classroom the same way that we would do every year. But that would also have to change. Siblings, if you have multiple children at Springdale Park of multiple grade levels, let's say you have a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader. Your 5th grader cannot walk the 1st grader to their class. Your 3rd grader can't walk the 1st grader to their class. Every grade level will have a different entry point so we can be thoughtful about contact tracing and how students entered and exited the building and who is in which hallways at all times. All right. Again, this is Sparklight COVID times. It is going to be different. Transportation. How we doing? Can I keep going, Nathan, for right now?
I mean, we have a lot of questions, and for a lot of parents, some of these questions are going to be answered as we continue to go on, so that's why I'm not bringing them up. I am going to stop you for just a second because with temperature checks and some of the health information, so people are asking, like, if their child just has a cold or has seasonal allergies, like, what are we saying?
Well, the thing is that one's going to be really difficult. I think what we are saying is that if there's anything that is symptomatic or similar to a symptom of COVID, we're asking you to keep them home. We have our nurse on. So Nurse Mac, I'm going to throw you into the line of fire here.
I understand. Just a little background. Before I was hired on at Spark, I was substituting in as a school nurse in Cherokee County. They went back, all students, everybody together, every day, 1st of August. And it did not go well. So APS is being much more careful. I can tell you that. We, having worked with schools in the time of COVID, I've developed a lot of sort of nurse discretion. We want to be very careful and protect our children. So there will be some judgment calls. I'm the nurse at the case center. Nurse Carr and I have talked this over. There will be some nursing judgment calls. If a child is face-to-face, we will try to keep every child in school that wants to be there face-to-face. Now, having said that, again, that gets into nursing judgment. If we have any reason to be concerned or be suspicious of the symptoms, we will call the parent to come get the child in the interest of protecting all of our children, both the one we're sending home and the children who are here face-to-face. I understand. My mom was a teacher. I know it is difficult when kids get sent home, but we want to protect the whole Spark community. So we are going to be very vigilant.
Thank you so much, Nurse Mac. So again, Terry Harness is not a doctor. I do not have a degree in epidemiology. I'm not that person, right? But we do have to trust the judgment of Nurse Carr and Nurse Mac in making those calls as far as students who are showing symptoms that could be similar to COVID, even if it is seasonal allergies. I suffer from seasonal allergies. I get it. And kids get the cold. We get a cold. We understand. So it will be very interesting to work through those processes. But we'll just be asking for parent support when we do make that judgment call. Nathan, what other questions?
So there's some questions about, like, if kids are sick, that they don't necessarily know what's going on, it may be a cold. Is there an option for that kid to join a virtual class for the day?
Yeah, I want to say absolutely. There will have to be that option because we don't want our kids to not be able to access the curriculum or access a teacher to be supported. So yes, students who are sick, or let's say if a student contracts COVID, or if they're exposed and they're at home for a period of time, they will still have the option to participate virtually in those circumstances.
This is going kind of back to classes and how we're reconfigured, but once we have all the data, is there going to be a priority to keep classes together? And another question, once we're all back face-to-face, would it revert back to how we started the year if we had to change classes?
So with that question, when we're all back face-to-face, now say that one more time.
So if we return in January and we're all face-to-face, would we revert back to our original classes that we started with at the beginning of the year?
We haven't made that decision. I don't want to say that we'll revert back to our original class, because if we did that, that means it would be another teacher change at that time. And I don't want the kids to be kind of going up and down between teachers and having to redo all of those things, especially after giving some time to connect with the teacher that they will have from October 26th moving forward. So we haven't really made the decision on how we would go back or what we would do in January if we all came back face to face.
Another question, is the curriculum the same for in-person learning as it is virtual?
Yeah, that is a great question. So some of these questions, Nathan's, are coming up in the, I believe in the next slides.
Yep.
But the answer is absolutely yes. So I will go ahead and answer this because this is a really good one. Virtual instruction and face-to-face instruction, it will still be the exact same scope and sequence that our grade level teachers are using. They are still expected to plan and work together. That's why that asynchronous day is so important, because think about it, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, they will not have time to work with each other. Wednesday will be their day to collaborate and discuss things, and I'll explain that just a little bit more in just a few slides. All right, so let me go on and talk about transportation, get through transportation and some other things. So this is, again, starting at the beginning of the day. Remember, parents will start out by screening their own kid. There is no coming into the building, visitors, volunteers, etc. And then you get to choose what your transportation is. We still have the same transportation options. You can put your child on the bus, you can drive your child to school in carpool, or you can walk or bike, however you choose to do it. Parents will still have these options for every one of your choices in terms of your decisions. What you're going to hear me say is this: I am going to highly, highly suggest that you either walk or bike to school. Now, we are a very interesting zone at Springdale Park where I know I live in Midtown and I'm not walking or biking, even though I probably should, to school every single day. But just keeping in mind, if you are able to walk or bike, please walk or bike with your child to school every day. For the first time in Springdale Park history, I am going to tell you to do your best. If you can't walk or bike, then drive your children to school. You've heard me for 5 years now say, please put your child on the bus. I'm not saying that right now. I'm saying walk or bike or drive your child to school. Keep in mind, during COVID times, if we have a large number of parents who choose carpool, whether it's at the kindergarten center or at main campus, this will cause added delays on Briarcliff. And if you are familiar with carpool at Springdale Park during pre-COVID times, it already caused delays on Briarcliff. So the thought of having a larger amount of people possibly driving their kids in, it definitely will cause some delays. We are contemplating opening up another, carpool drop-off spot in front of the Hirsch House at the Hirsch House car loop on Ponce to provide two opportunities or two different ways to drop children off. And we'll see if that is advantageous, if that's helpful. I think it will probably just cause delays on Briarcliff and cause delays on Ponce. But we'll do our best to try and figure that out. Drop-off time would be 7:30 to 8. The number one thing that we see about parents with carpool and dropping off is that from 7:30 to about 7:40, we have very few cars. Everyone kind of wants to come to school or drop their children off right at about 7:55. And that will not be cool for you because kids will be late and you may be late as well. So 7:30 to 8 o'clock, I would suggest getting there as soon as possible. Why am I not recommending or suggesting the bus? This is just my recommendation. Parents, you can still choose. On the bus, we cannot guarantee social distancing because we don't know how many children will be on the bus on any given day. So that's one reason why I'm saying don't do the bus. The other reason is that there will be intermingling of students across grade levels. if you watch the board meeting, they talked a lot about creating cohorts, right? And in those cohorts, we would basically be keeping our children in a school bubble, like their homeroom would be a bubble. And I'll explain that in just a minute. Their bubble is going to pop in this bus because they will not be in their cohorts traveling or getting on the bus with a group of kids that they have been with all day. So this is why I'm not suggesting that you put children on the bus, but I do understand if you have to. All right, when kids do get off of the bus or when they get out of the car or when they walk to school, they will have different entry points at Springdale Park. Every grade level will have a different way to enter the building. It'll be an entrance that is within close proximity of their classroom. And it's to try our best to keep up with contact tracing so we know how kids enter and exit the building at all times. And then we can firmly say, this child was not on this hallway at all through the day. It's all a part of that cohort and bubble model. So let me talk a little bit about this next slide, and then we'll answer some questions, Nathan. Classrooms will absolutely remain in their bubble, in their cohort. I'm choosing not to say pod. We're just going to say bubble, right? And what does that mean, Mr. Harness? That means if I am a student in one of my teacher's classes, if I am in Miss Steigerwalt's homeroom classroom, I will be in Miss Steigerwalt's face-to-face homeroom classroom pretty much the entire school day. Let me make sure that's very, very clear. I will be with her in that room pretty much for the entire school day. Will there be moments where we might not be in the room? Yes, and that moment might be when we're eating lunch outside and taking a mask break, okay? So that will be one opportunity, but that class will not be eating lunch in the cafeteria. And again, this is COVID times. So what our kids are accustomed to with going into the cafeteria with all of their grade level friends, all 160 first graders, all 130 third graders, they will not have that experience in the cafeteria anymore. They will be eating lunch either in their classroom or outside together as a class. They will stay with their bubble. When they have recess, because you still give opportunities to go outside as much as possible, they will still remain with their bubble. That means they cannot disperse all, let's say 12 of them that come back face to face and play on any area of the playground. Our playground literally will be zoned off, and a teacher will be assigned to those zones where the children have to play and stay. And somebody write that down, that's good, play and stay. So that's what will happen. They will be in their zones. And again, it's to maintain their bubble and to lower the amount of exposure to other children. Is this a good spot for some questions, Nathan?
Yeah, we have a few transportation questions, which I want to pose first.
Sure.
What safety measures can we implement for bikers and walkers for Moreland and Briarcliff, since we might have an increased number?
So what we've done is we've been in contact with the Atlanta police, the APS police, to try to ensure that we do get additional crossing guards and possibly additional support as far as crossing the streets, etc. We recognize that Briarcliff and that Monroe, that Ponce area is incredibly dangerous. There's tons of cars with very little respect for it being a school zone. So we've requested additional support, knowing that we are asking more families to walk. So we have to do something, and we haven't heard anything back just yet from APS, but I know that they are working on it and they are hiring new individuals to participate. If anybody can find where that
All right, so two more questions around transportation. Will we be opening corridors like we have in the past?
That one's really tough. I thought about that last night, probably around 3 o'clock when I woke up. That one's really interesting because that would cause all of the people, you guys see me in carpool in the morning. Mr. Stevenson, you see Ms. Simbita has been in carpool. I'm sure at the Case Center you'll see Ms. Johnson. And we do open up car doors as a, just as a service, just to kind of move the carpool line along. We have to think about that. We might open them up. We'll be wearing gloves if we do clearly, but we're going to think about that. So hopefully we will be able to continue to provide that, but that is a lot of door handling for the amount of cars that will be coming in. So I will be very cautious about it, and I will let probably our staff decide on whether or not that is something they feel comfortable in doing. We may just have to stand at the door and ask the kid to open up the door. So, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Will we and how will we take attendance on buses in order to be able to do contact tracing?
Yes, it is my understanding that the bus driver will take, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, Melanie, help me out, or Dr. Tony, that the bus driver will take attendance to let us know who was on the bus during that day. And that will be done daily. So, and we have to do that again for contact tracing purposes in the event that a kid exposes others, et cetera. So yes, there will be attendance taken for the buses.
All right, a lot of the other questions we're gonna be answering again as we keep moving along. So we'll just push pause on questions for now.
Okay, well, thank you guys for being patient. You're doing great. All right, moving on. So everyone understands the bubble cohort with their kids. All right, so what does this mean for children? Keeping in mind, this is COVID times. Kids realize that they can't walk into the building with their siblings, into their classroom with their siblings. Parents can't come into the room, so kids will know that their parent can't come into the building or to their classroom. There will be no birthday visits. Kids know this. And parents, I'm saying this because I need your help in speaking with children so they are aware of these things. But what will happen specifically when they are in the actual classroom face-to-face? Supplies and materials, and I'm wanting to paint this picture for you. They will not be able to check out in classroom books. Why? Because of the little hands on the books. So teachers in class libraries, the students will not be able to check out those books. Teachers are going to have to do things a little differently, a little bit more creatively. There will be no sharing of materials. So a lot of teachers always have like extra scissors, extra pencils, extra markers, etc. There will not be sharing of those items. We will be asking our parents who choose face-to-face to make sure that every day your child comes to school with all of their materials, all of their resources needed. And then every single day, those kids will have to take home every one of those resources with them. And the reason we're saying that is because at any point in time, we might need to close the school or close a classroom for exposure reasons. They will have to bring their own devices, right? So if they've got a school device, it needs to come with them charged. It needs to come with them charged, because we cannot use the computer labs or our computer labs where students can go in and use, you know, it's just a community laptop or community desktop. They need to use the one that has been assigned to them. The computers and the computers that are in the classrooms, the students will not necessarily be able to use those desktops, because we want to keep students using their equipment and their equipment only. They will literally have to bring all of their materials back and forth daily. The facilities, we talked a little bit about the classroom when I showed you the calculator, but students will be socially distanced within the classroom as much as possible. Tables will be switched to desks where feasible. For kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, the majority of our teachers have tables in their rooms. Well, we can't use tables because we need the kids to have their own space. We are switching those things out now as I speak, and trying to get enough desks so we can accommodate all of our kids. I know Dr. Tony has ordered a lot of desks from the facilities department from Atlanta Public Schools, and we hope that they will be delivered soon at some point. Carpets in the classroom, those non-traditional carpets will be rolled up. because we will not have community gatherings on the carpet in circle time. That has been a huge staple over the last 3-4 years at Spark, where the community gathering starts their day and they're usually on the carpet talking about a topic that the teacher presents. Non-traditional seating. We had some of our upper grade students or upper grade teachers who do not assign seats to students. Students had choice. That will no longer be the case. They will be assigned to a seat that will be their seat and only their seat during the day. So students and that non-traditional seating will have to be removed or just simply not be used. Again, no sharing of supplies. Twice daily wipe downs of high touch surfaces within the building and within the classrooms. Book bags, jackets, etc. will be kept at student desks. So kindergarten, first, and second, they usually have like the hooks outside of their door where all the kids put their things. That will no longer be the case. Students will literally have to keep all of their belongings beside them at their desk. Cafeteria. So keeping in mind, Springdale Park was originally built as what was referred to as a boutique school. All right, it was supposed to always be around 400, maybe 500 students max. But then they kept adding more and more. We kept having more students come, which was great. But the cafeteria remained the same, and the size of that cafeteria is really more for a boutique school. It is not a cafeteria designed for 700 to 800 children. That's why we start lunch at 10 o'clock and it goes until 1 because we could not fit a lot of children in that spot. So we couldn't do that during pre-COVID times. Imagine during COVID times. We cannot use the cafeteria for lunch. Instead, both school breakfast and lunch will be delivered to the students' individual classrooms. They will eat outdoors or inside their classroom, and they will be supervised by their classroom teacher. All right, so the classroom teacher will be with them during lunch. That means our teacher will not have their own individual lunch. They will be with your children. Facilities and in the hallways. If you've been in Spark, in main campus, then you know that we've got lots of floors and lots of different hallways. So the water fountains on each hallway has been turned off, all right? Because we don't want kids going to the water fountain trying to drink from the fountain. PTO purchased water bottle filling stations for every hallway at Spark and the K Center. So we are encouraging, or we will continue to encourage, students bring a water bottle that they can fill up daily, all right? Students will still be 6 feet apart when feasible in the hall. There will be clear signage for social distancing on the floors, similar to what you may have seen in Publix or Kroger when it says, please go down one way down this aisle, that we see a lot of people ignore. We'll have directional arrows and dots on the floor in the hallways. Teachers and staff will ensure that students are socially distanced. Hand sanitizer stations are throughout the building, and hall monitors will be in place for bathroom use. And let me mention something about hand sanitizing stations. The district, Atlanta Public Schools, I'm very grateful for this. They have installed a hand sanitizing station in every homeroom classroom, along with a paper towel dispenser in every classroom. So that is something that we have not had in the past and we will have. But these will also be installed throughout the entire building, in the hallways, and throughout any different area within Springdale Park. Now, the hall monitors in the hallway, you know as well as I do, even if we have a strict schedule for bathroom time for kids where we do whole group visitations to the bathroom, socially distanced, of course, there will still be moments during class time where a student will raise their hand and say, may I use the bathroom? The teacher will make a judgment call and say, well, they're going to let them go to the bathroom. When they go to the bathroom, they will go to their hall assigned bathroom. They don't get to choose, because some of our children were very, very particular about the bathrooms they use at Spark. They will not get to use the private one in the media center. They'll have to use the bigger one on their hallway closest in proximity to their classroom. There will be a hall monitor who literally will be writing down student names, so we again can continue with contact tracing and we know where a kid has been at all times, especially if they are not with their teacher. Continuing on with bathrooms, they will be assigned by proximity. Whole group bathroom visits will be made. Bathroom monitors. There won't be, let me make sure that this is clear. There's not someone sitting in the bathroom. There will not be an adult sitting in the bathroom. They will be on the outside in the hallway. So I don't want you to think that we have adults in the bathroom. The middle stall urinals will be marked off to allow for social distancing. Middle sinks will be marked off to allow for social distancing. Masks and masks must be worn at all times. All right, this is a big one, and we should have put this in closer to the beginning. But at Spark, we're all going to be wearing masks. It is not a request; it is a requirement. So we are going to be wearing masks. That is our teachers and that is our kids. Even when they are in class, they are wearing their masks. The only time that the mask will be removed is when they're eating or when there is a designated mask break, where preferably it is happening outside. Custodial schedules will be revised to include frequent cleaning and checkpoints of all bathrooms. All right, playground. Will we still have recess at Spark? And the answer is yes. Yes, we absolutely will. But we will have playground zones. This is just a few of the examples of playground zones. It will be on a rotating schedule. So if there are 7 first grade teachers or 8 kindergarten teachers, they will all go to the playground zone on a particular rotating schedule. So they may have their zone scheduled for the playground turf area, where you see a lot of the kids usually playing soccer, or it's where we kind of set up when we do a movie night. That'll be one zone, and the kids will be, they have to stay in that zone. They can't venture out of it. The playground structure area, the sports court, and that gaga ball area would be a zone. The lawn in front of the Hirsch House will be a zone. The turf in between the buildings will be a zone. We have a new seating area, which we're referring to as like the turf patio, where that could potentially be a zone. And if you guys know where I and Dr. Tony park at main campus, we are even contemplating not parking over there to create kind of like a blacktop zone for kids to be outside. So we're going to probably end up parking in the Briarcliff parking lot, which is more than fine, to give our kids a little bit more space outside.
All right, Mr. Harness, I'm gonna stop you there because there's some questions about outdoor spaces and will kids be allowed to use playground equipment?
They will be allowed to use the playground equipment. We have to make sure that we do our best to wipe down, clean playground equipment as often as possible. But yes, they will be allowed to use it. Remember, in addition to these safety measures, we're also going to be teaching kids daily, wash our hands frequently. Do our best not to touch our faces throughout the day. Wearing the mask, even with a mask, potentially sneezing, coughing into your elbow just because it's a good habit to have, even if a mask is on. Yes, I understand it's nasty, but it's still things that we want our kids to practice and do. So we will try to use the playground equipment. Yes.
There was a question about supplies that you mentioned, that students would have to bring supplies to school and back home every day. How are children physically going to be able to carry all these things?
Yeah, that is going to be a very, very difficult thing. We have talked about this a lot. We understand that some of these backpacks with kids, especially in the upper grades, can be incredibly heavy. And even for the littles, it's a lot to manage. We're going to suggest that we might need to do some backpacks that have wheels on it, where they can wheel it behind them, where they don't necessarily have to lift anything, but they literally can just wheel it as if they're going through the airport safely and socially distanced.
And so there's a suggestion of, can kids just leave the supplies in the classroom?
That one is very tough. And the reason is it depends on what part you refer to as the supplies. Our concern is if we have to pivot to a virtual setting, now we have all of the student supplies at school, which could include their books, etc. So we may have to talk a little bit more about that and work with families and the homeroom teachers to make sure that anything that they would need for virtual instruction, if we had to pivot to go back to virtual instruction, that they would have with them at all times. Maybe little things we can figure out a way to keep them at Spark, but for right now, until you get further information from your homeroom teacher, the plan is for them to take all of their things back and forth from school to home, etc.
All right, there are a lot more questions that we're going to continue to answer as we keep going forward. So I'd say just keep going, Mr. Harness.
All right, so the school day schedule. All right, so we went through the building and all the different environments or areas at Springdale Park. So now let's talk a little bit about the schedule. We recognize that we are going to have, I don't know what the percentage will be. If I had to make a guess, I'm going to say, let's say we've got 50% choose face-to-face, 50% choose virtual instruction. Because we still have children virtually, we still want to maintain the schedule that we have been working with. But because of equity reasons, we need to have the exact same schedule for our children in the face-to-face setting. So the schedule that you guys are accustomed to and that you are so familiar with right now, it will still be the same schedule in a face-to-face setting. It'll still be the same lunchtime, 11:15 to 12 o'clock. It'll still be the same specials time, right? So whatever their specials time, they will still have specials at their time. Specials teachers, and I'm going to get to in a minute, they will be Zooming in to the homeroom. Okay, let me say that one more time. Specials teachers will Zoom in to the homeroom. Why? Because we don't want our specials teachers exposed to every classroom throughout the week. They will Zoom into the classroom, into that homeroom class, and students will have specials similarly to what you've already seen virtually. So what will be a little different? 1:30 to 2:30. So remember when I said at the beginning, the time is from 8 to 2:30. That means we're adding an hour at the end of the day for instruction. So 1:30 to 2:30 is going to be called the What You Need Now block. What do I need right now? So this is all about personalized, differentiated instruction. If there are students who need a little bit more support in or remediation in a particular area, that will be an opportunity for them to use Lexia or Freckle or iReady or any of the amazing software programs that we currently have. It will also be an opportunity for teachers to work individually with students who need more face time with the teacher. It can also be an opportunity for teachers to use it as small group time. And then one thing that I think we have recognized and we've heard from teachers throughout the year so far is on occasion, there might have been a lesson that the teacher just wanted 15 to 20 more minutes on. So if it were a math lesson and the teacher was like, we could have knocked it out of the park if I had 15 more minutes, this is where they could pick up that additional 15 to 20 minutes of instructional time. So it's a little flexible for teachers for how to use it. Teachers could use that as, in that way, but students will also have choice in what it is that they need now during that block. And we will try to offer that to our face-to-face kids and simultaneously with our virtual kids. Now, I want to make sure that this is very clear about the asynchronous Wednesdays. There is a sentiment that students will not be learning or doing anything on an asynchronous Wednesday. That is not the truth. In their Google Classroom, they will have access to lessons, activities, etc. And that is what they're expected to do. And teachers will have to make sure that they can access that in Google Classroom. But that is what they will do on their asynchronous day. Now, let me paint this picture for you one more time. As I've talked about how teachers and students will remain in their bubble, teachers will be with their whole classroom the entire school day. They will be with them during lunch. They will be with them during specials. So what does that mean? That means that teachers will not necessarily have a planning where they literally can plan for instruction on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, because they will have face-to-face kids with them at all times. They will not have a break. We will give bio breaks to teachers who need to use the restroom as much as we can. but they will not have a break, all right? That's why asynchronous Wednesday for deep cleaning, and so teachers can plan with their colleagues and for the week, is so incredibly important, all right? So if there are parents out there who are like, well, why can't they teach virtually on Wednesday? That's the reason why. They need time to actually plan for their instruction for the 4 days of the week. Again, I mentioned that specials classes, art, music, PE, the media center, SEL, Spanish, environmental ed, it will all still be virtual the exact same way that you have seen specials conducted in the virtual setting. It will remain on a 7-day rotation. Specials teachers will support in other areas throughout the day. What do I mean by that? We still will need teachers to help us supervise carpool in the morning, bus duty in the afternoon, bus duty in the morning, in any number of ways. So our specials teachers and some of our special support teachers will be supporting us, assisting us in providing supervision throughout our entire school day. The gifted schedule. So we do have a schedule that is up here right now, but I want to make sure that this is clear. This one is not set in stone. This is not set in stone for gifted. Right now, in a virtual setting, 5th grade has gifted on Wednesdays. The only difference would be switching that 5th grade to a Monday gifted day. We're thinking about some other creative ways to provide gifted for our kids. And the reason why I say this, think about the amount of students that Springdale Park has in its building that are gifted. That is a lot of intermingling of students from different bubbles. We have to really think about how can we provide gifted services to our kids without, I don't want to say cross-contaminating, but cross-contaminating or intermingling classrooms or students from different homerooms. So this one is still a work in progress. We'll better understand how this could work when we see what the percentages of face-to-face and virtual for students are. But we may need to use a part of the Wednesday asynchronous day at home for kids to be working on gifted instruction. So that might be a possibility. ESOL and special ed, those schedules have to remain the same virtually and face-to-face because we have to continue to provide those services for our kids. And the only way that we can do it is if we keep our current schedule virtually the same, face-to-face and virtual.
So, Mr. Harness, we actually have a lot of questions about schedules, and I just kind of want to group them together.
Yeah.
So if, will the 1:30 to 2:30 time be mandatory for all students going forward, including the virtual?
I highly suggest that our students participate, especially the ones that are virtually, that they participate in that 1:30 to 2:30. But I also think, similarly to the way that you all have given grace to our teachers and our teachers have given grace to our families, that you can always have a conversation with your teacher to discuss that 1:30 to 2:30 block, okay? For face-to-face students, this will be a mandatory thing because they will be with us until 2:30.
We've kind of already answered this, but maybe you want to expand upon it. If kids are returning face-to-face, how much screen time are they actually going to have, or is it going to try to be limited?
Yeah, we're going to try to do as much as we can in terms of limiting that amount of screen time. Just being very real with you, the goal, again, is to have teachers dedicated only face-to-face and have teachers dedicated only to virtual. There is a slight possibility that we might not be able to do that based on how it all, pans out. So that might mean there may be some teachers who have to provide what is referred to as simultaneous instruction. Simultaneous instruction means they may have children face-to-face in their room with them and students virtually in the virtual atmosphere with them that they have to contend with. If we have to do if we have to assign a teacher to simultaneous instruction, then we will probably have to use more of a virtual model where your kids would be sitting in a classroom on their own device, because remember, they're going to bring them charged, and the teacher will be teaching virtually, but the kids will at least have their own laptop to work virtually with. I don't know that that can really work at Spark based on the Wi-Fi bandwidth. So we may have to just simply project our teacher onto their Recordex or Promethean board, but the teacher may have to teach virtually for the kids who are at home while simultaneously teaching to the face-to-face children, bubbly virtually. I don't know how to put it, but simultaneously. I hope I answer that question. It really depends on how things just shake out.
If dismissal continues to be at 2:30, how will we space out the carpool?
Well, so what I mean by dismissal at 2:30 is that is when we actually start allowing children to, exit the building with families, parents, etc. Carpool is going to be a very interesting thing, and we have to be very thoughtful about how we do carpool. So in the afternoon, we may say on the Briarcliff side, only first, second, and third grade students will be at carpool on that side, and then fourth and fifth grade students may be picked up at the Hirsch house. Yes, I understand that there are siblings and there's some things that we have to work out, but we'll have to stagger. We have to figure out a way in which we can get students to where they need to be, but still being mindful, where feasible, of social distance. So those are things that we are still having to work itself out. We'll have a better understanding of how to do that when we know the percentage of kids coming back face to face.
Will PE, if it's being held in the class, will kids just be jumping around in their classroom? Like, will they be doing it all inside the?
Yeah, so our PE teachers have already said multiple times, well, I would love to just have PE outside if that happens, and I'm all for it. So I think what we'll probably try to do is give them the opportunity to have PE outside as much as possible, especially if it is going to be that high impact type of aerobic activity where they're going to be breathing heavily. But if there are some other things that our PE teachers can do that is a little bit more low key and low impact, especially for days where the kids have to stay inside the classroom, then that is what they're going to focus on. So their lessons will have to be adjusted and monitored based on the situation for the teachers on those particular days.
On one of our supplies slides, we said that they would need to bring their device with them. If they weren't issued an APS device, are we saying then that they now have to bring a personal device to school?
That one, we've talked about that one as well. It would be great if that could happen, because admittedly, out of all of the, Kristen Sambita, how many devices did we have at one point?
We had about 500, but some of them were broken or returned broken. So we are pretty much out. We have a few left of devices. And honestly, you can talk a little bit more about the paper issue and how we're not going to really be allowed to use paper as much. So they probably will need a device at school. So we are asking everybody to bring their own device, and also it'll allow the kids to collaborate where they can't collaborate by, sharing a paper or a book. So at least they'll be able to collaborate online.
So as you can see, face-to-face, although it's something that we want, it will create some interesting concerns and issues for us that we do have to work through. So we would request, if possible, for them to bring their own device, whether it's an APS issued one or a home one. If that is not feasible or possible, we get it, but we have to figure out ways in which we can do that and do that well. We are out pretty much. Springdale Park has given all of our devices out, and we had a ton of them. And remember, we gave devices out during crisis learning at the end of last year. And when they came back over the summer, they came back damaged, not working, whatever. So we've sent them out to be repaired. We haven't received them back. Once we get some of those devices back, we'll have a few to lend and to assign to a student, but we will not be able to accommodate every kid right now, and maybe not even on October 26th. But if you can send a personal device, that would be great. Kristen does make an incredibly good point about collaboration and trying to give students opportunities to work in groups or pairs. But the best way to do that is through a device and continuing to use Google Drive and shared folders, etc. That would be the easiest way to collaborate, because students will not be able to just simply get up, go and convene with their group. They still have to, even in the classroom, maintain their social distancing.
There's a question: if the school isn't able to provide a HEPA air purifier, will the classroom be able to donate this?
That sounds really interesting. The answer is we are not planning on providing a purifier. The district itself, they have made some upgrades in terms of the air filters and the air conditioning system. We've also opened up all of the windows that were bolted shut at Spark. So our teachers will be able to open up a window to provide some fresh air and more circulation within it. For equity reasons and purposes, and just making sure that everyone is aware, it's really difficult. We are a community that we have a lot of resources provided to us through our PTO and through our very supportive Springdale Park families, parents, and guardians. The district has asked the schools to be mindful about equity, and meaning, can this one school have all of these things when other schools do not have it as well? That one is still a little gray. I'm not 100% sure how to navigate within that, but I would like to believe if there are things that would like to be donated from a family to a classroom, that we would graciously accept it and we would thank you for it. But I just want us to all be mindful about the equity piece with our school compared to other schools within the district.
A parent has asked, can we ask our teachers before the October 12th deadline if they plan on returning to make a more informed opinion?
You are more than welcome to ask your teacher, but just keep in mind, your teacher does not have to let you know at this moment. So I don't want you to think that they're just going to tell you. And what I would ask is this: I don't think our Springdale Park parents would do this ever, but just in case, if a teacher does tell you what it is that they are planning on doing, let them have that. Do not try to convince them otherwise. They need to make choices that is in the best interest for themselves and their families, the same way that our parents have to do it. So I don't want them to feel that they are pressured into choosing one or another because of parents. So I'm asking you to be very respectful of their decision and just understand and know that it might not be what you would prefer or what you would want for your kid.
Hey, Mr. Harness, can I just piggyback off that?
Sure.
Even if your teacher is coming back, it doesn't mean necessarily that you will remain with that teacher. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And that would also, let's say you elect for a virtual class, that doesn't mean that you're going to keep your same class. It could potentially change as well.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct.
So another parent question. The declaration is only binding until January. Will we be revisiting this again? So will families have to make another decision coming up in January?
Yes, the answer is absolutely. So it is binding to January 19th. So I am assuming that the district will provide parents another opportunity to redeclare their intent moving forward for the remaining part of the school year. And of course, they will make those decisions based on health guidance and where we are and whether our numbers are dropping or increasing, et cetera. But yes, you will be given another opportunity down the road to declare your intent for the spring semester.
There's a few questions about if we have too many students saying they're returning, maybe not enough teachers, will the school start date be October 26th no matter what?
Yes, yes. What I've, and just being very real with you, in speaking with our teachers, we had to be very, very real yesterday and give them all the truth. And the truth is that there may be some teachers who are teaching, I don't know, first grade that might end up moving to a different grade level to accommodate families who have chosen face-to-face. There may be a gifted teacher who's currently teaching gifted who may have to become a homeroom teacher in order to accommodate face-to-face or virtual. So every teacher understands that any number of possibilities could occur, okay? Just so we can make sure that we can accommodate the families that do decide to return face-to-face.
Some parents wanted an elaboration of how we will hand off between, if we continue to have departmentalized like STEM and humanities, like what will the process be for that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for bringing that up. So being realistic, for those who don't know, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, we departmentalize. That means our students are on a homeroom team, okay? So they have 2 teachers. One teacher teaches humanities, the other teacher teaches STEM. So humanities, reading, writing, social studies, and STEM, math, and science. The students, midway through the day, they typically go over to their team homeroom teacher's classroom. They switch or transition between classrooms. In this new COVID time spark, depending on how things work itself out, we may not be able to do departmentalized teams. That means a homeroom teacher in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade may have to teach all of the content similar to the way kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade teach, okay? That might have to be an option. And that's just because we don't want our kids traveling from one class to another. Another option would be for the teachers to potentially travel from one class to the other, so they will not get to stay in their room. But then that also means that that teacher would be exposed to 2 groups of students. So that bubble would have to change a little bit. It'll get a little wobbly. So we have to think about those things. So departmentalization during COVID times may change entirely to what you experienced when your kid was in kindergarten, 1st, or 2nd grade.
For staff members, or is HR only making this decision based off of medical reasons for them to say they can't return to school? I think
it's medical reasons where it's a personal medical reason. It could be medical reasons where they are taking care of a family member in their household, or they are the primary caregiver for a family member in their household. It's also in the event that, let's say that some of our teachers may have their children in a different district going to school. Depending on that district, if that district says we're going to continue virtually, then teachers can request telework because they don't have childcare for their kid. So there are multiple reasons that a teacher could request and be approved for telework. So it's not just medical.
Is the school or the district making any effort to reach out to students in need who might need face-to-face more? For instance, they have limited internet, they need greater supervision. So they're getting the survey, so the default wouldn't remain virtual.
Yeah, we talked about that a good bit too. I think the biggest thing is that we know which kids we would prefer to have face-to-face. We have that information, but we also have to be incredibly respectful of the family's decision. Some of our parents know that their kid may need to be in school, but they are still very fearful of their safety and their health, and that's going to take precedence. It's going to be based off of those families' decisions and what they feel is in the best interest of their kid and their family. And it seems like families are choosing health right now in comparison to the need of coming back. But that is a family choice.
Can you direct families where they can find the infection rate data that APS is using, and do we know what the infection rate is as of today?
I do not know what that is as of today. I can send out in a Sparky that information. I think if you go to the Atlanta Public Schools homepage and in the search bar type COVID, I think it will take you to the page of all of the information and the data specifically that they're using to make determinations.
Someone's asking, can you elaborate on the possibility of a teacher doing both face-to-face and virtual? They believe that you said that it would be one or the other, but is there a possibility that they might have to do both?
There is a definite possibility where that simultaneous instruction will occur. And that's what I was referring to regarding simultaneous instruction. Some teachers may have to teach face-to-face with kids in their room and virtually with kids in your home at the exact same time. And that is called simultaneous instruction. It is a possibility. It is not something that Springdale Park wants to do, but we also may have no choice but do it. So I can't guarantee yes or no.
Another question about departmentalization. For virtual, how will humanities and STEM be handled? Will it be the same as today, or will it become like face-to-face? Will they switch or have the same teacher teach both?
It could be any of those. I think if our goal would be to try, let's say we have two teachers who are dedicated to virtual teaching, and if one is STEM and if one is humanities, then we'll probably do our best to switch them out like we have been doing and like the kids have been accustomed to. So we'll try to keep that as is, but there is a possibility, let's just say in 5th grade, that only 20% of our kids decide to go, or families decide to go virtual. If that is the case, then I might only need one teacher in 5th grade to teach virtually. So that means that that one teacher would teach all the content.
Kind of a follow-up. If will virtual classes be bigger if we're trying to keep face-to-face smaller?
There is a distinct possibility that that will happen. That is, and our teachers ask the exact same question. There is a possibility that virtual classrooms could be a little larger. But there's also the possibility, based on who chooses virtual, where they could be smaller. So we won't know until we know.
There was a question earlier on that was asking if one or more child with symptoms, how would you isolate the two children? Or how would you isolate the children in general?
Yeah, so at Spark, we will have something called a get well room. The district is referring to it as an isolation room. That seems a little isolating to me, and I don't like the name. So we either call it get well or a care room. So if a student presents with symptoms and or has a fever, they will report to the get well room. We will call, it will not be in the clinic. The school nurse will not be in the get well room with them. We have to have someone staffing that room to supervise and to be with the kid, but we will call the parent and the parent will come and pick them up, but the student will remain in the get well room apart from other students within the building.
Some questions that are just coming in. If our child is face-to-face, will we be able to send the boxes of supplies to educate back to school, or will we keep those at home?
Yes and no. You can definitely send a lot of those supplies to the school, and we would like to have them. So, for example, in those supplies, there were wipes, perhaps, or if there might have been tissues, or there might have been hand sanitizer, or there might have been soap. I know our teachers would greatly appreciate that, even though the district is supplying us all with those materials. We don't know what the time lag may or may not be if we run out. So any opportunity to have some extra on hand would be great. So I would ask that you do your best to send those in with the teachers in a separate bag or something that says for the teacher to keep at school for classroom use. But I appreciate you asking that question.
Does APS have a cap on class sizes for face-to-face classrooms and virtual classrooms?
They do not. There is not a cap. They do not. At Spark, we will do our best to abide by social distancing and keep the number of students in a class based on square footage, that number. So if it literally is showing that we need to only have 12 kids in a room, then we will try to keep 12 kids in a room when it's feasible. But I'm hopeful. I will keep my fingers crossed that everything will work, seamlessly. But I'm sure there will be moments where there will be an extra kid in a classroom just because another, a child chose or a family chose face to face.
I think I'm caught up on questions, although there were a lot, so I may have missed yours. So feel free to put it back in the chat. We will try our best to answer.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Let me talk a little bit about after-school daycare. The club is our after-school daycare provider. We will have the option for after-school daycare for students and for families. That means that the club would be there on campus. They are approved vendors through the district, so they will be allowed to be in our building to provide this service. But this is very important for me to make sure it's clear. They are only providing after-school daycare. There will not be clubs that we are accustomed to. So if you've signed your child up in the past for ballet or for karate or for tennis or for Humblebee Art or chess or any of those clubs, they will not happen at Springdale. We are only offering daycare, after school daycare. It will run from 2:30 to 6 o'clock as normal. It will be on main campus and probably relegated to either a combination of the gym and the cafeteria, but keeping in mind social distancing and the amount of students that we can have in those spaces at one time. You can go to our website, look up the club information, and I think they have more information for you regarding how that will work. I would suggest if you were choosing face-to-face and if you need daycare, that you go ahead and start registering for the club after school if you want to have it on school campus, on school grounds. And I hope that makes sense. I see there must be some questions popped up, Nathan.
Yeah, there's been several questions throughout about quarantines, about different scenarios. Here's one. If I have a second grader whose entire class is required to quarantine due to an exposure to a positive case in class, and he has a sibling in kindergarten, is that kindergartner also required to quarantine since he shares a home with a second grader?
Quite possibly. That will be questions that are the Atlanta Public Schools Health Department will be asking to help us make those decisions on who would need to quarantine at that time. So that is a legitimate possibility.
Any periodic COVID testing recommendations for face-to-face kids and teachers?
So we have a parent who works at Georgia Tech who was instrumental in getting the saliva test, rapid test. I'm going to reach out to him. I'm not saying that he's going to be able to provide tests. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that maybe he could potentially work with APS where that is an option. At this time, I know that the district is entertaining. They are researching, trying to provide tests, but they still have to figure out how that would work and provide more guidance to schools on that, if that is an option at schools or at the district level. So more information would be forthcoming about that, but it is definitely something that we have thought about, that we can see why it would be advantageous to have, but right now there's nothing solidified about testing at the school or at the district level.
Yeah, so a separate question, but they're asking, can you elaborate on the need versus want? If APS is asking us not to send our kid back if we just want it, but our kid is doing okay virtually, so we don't need it.
Well, let me make sure it's very clear that that was not an APS recommendation, okay? That was a board member who expressed his opinions about the differences between need and want, all right? So APS is not, saying that to families. What they're saying is that you know your family better than anyone. If you need your child to come back to school, then send them to school. If you want them to come back to school, you have the choice to send them to school. But as you can see with the picture that we painted today, There will be some teachers whose children, or some families whose students will absolutely need to come back because they are not thriving necessarily in the virtual environment, and there are gaps that we need to fill. So they need them to be in face-to-face instruction. But then there are families that will want their kid to come back because, just being realistic, it's easier for home life and for work life if the kids are at school. We get that. It's got to be your choice regarding the need and the want, and I think you have to define that for yourself. So keep in mind, APS is not saying anything regarding need versus want. It was a board member who offered a wonderful way to consider need and want during these times.
A follow-up question about the club. How will kids be sectioned off into bubbles at the club?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And that's why I was saying that for the club, clearly there will be some intermingling, right? But what we can do is I can work with the club and say, these are the kids that were in this homeroom. Let's try and keep them together. These are the kids in this homeroom. Let's try and keep them together. And we will provide them with as much information so they can try to keep cohorts or students together, but still socially distanced. Regardless of where they are, they will all still be socially distanced in that room, in the cafeteria or the gym, depending on where we set up after school daycare.
A question regarding the schedule. For kindergarten and first graders doing virtual at Spark, will the extra APS mandated screen breaks continue?
Melanie, you want to try and take this part?
Sure. We are going to have to adjust the schedule a little more for kindergarten and first. So the slide you're looking at shows that we'll be adding that 1 to 2:30 block, but right now in kindergarten we end at 1 o'clock. So we will extend our math and language arts blocks a little bit. Parents, several of you have said that they feel a little rushed with these extra screen breaks. So we will be extending those and then keeping that 1:30 to 2:30 what I need now block that Principal Harness discussed. There will be some breaks throughout the day. I can't say that they will be the exact same screen breaks that you see now, but just like our face-to-face classes will have to take instructional breaks for restroom breaks and things like that, we'll still have screen breaks throughout the day.
Thank you, Melanie. Any other questions, Nathan?
Nathan, while I'm talking, can I go ahead and address a couple of K-Center questions that parents asked both publicly and privately in the chat?
Yeah,
there have been some questions about church personnel in the K-Center during the day. There's no overlap between church personnel and school personnel. The doors that separate the church part of our building from the K-Center part remain closed and locked during the day. The only exception to that would be if church maintenance personnel, sometimes they need to fix things in like the boiler room or something like that, but those personnel wear a mask and they always let me know before they come into our portion of the building. There was another question, Nathan, about visitors. There are no visitors in the building. If the church is doing anything like that, it would be solely on the church side and there would be no interaction on the kindergarten center side.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead with closing thoughts. Nathan, if there are any other questions, I know you'll stop me. So just some closing thoughts about everything that we just shared. Again, you need to declare your intent. You have a lot more information than you did previously, I hope. And I hope we were able to answer your questions as thoughtfully as possible. We recognize that this is a huge undertaking, not only for the school, but it's a huge decision for parents to have to make for their children. Feel free to reach out to any of us to ask any additional questions if you just need a little bit more time to kind of help with your decision. An individual survey needs to be completed for every single child at Springdale Park. And what happens if you don't fill out the survey? You automatically default to a virtual choice, a virtual at Spark choice. How can you support Spark? This has been the biggest question that I've gotten, it seems like. Please remember our PTO funds the operational budget of Springdale Park because we take all of our school budget and put it to personnel. So even during pre-COVID times, we had smaller class sizes than some of our sister schools and other schools within Atlanta Public Schools. So they fund our operational budget. So please donate to the PTO. Please remember that this is not easy on any of us. This is very, very difficult. So be kind, be as understanding as possible. And then the last thing that I just kind of wanted to show was yesterday I shared this on social media. It's just the Springdale Park I Can and I Will Pledge to Be Safe pledge. Basically what this is we recognize at Spark, in order for our children to be able to come back face to face, our community has a shared responsibility in that. It's not just a teacher, principal, administrative team, student agreement. This has to be an agreement among our families and people within our Springdale Park community. If you go to our website, you can see what the state Safe Pledge is, where we have things that we want our students to be able to do and understand and be consistent with it. And that's something that I would love for parents to talk with their kids about. We have the community pledge, we have our teacher staff pledge, and then there's the shared responsibility, just comments regarding we are literally all in this together. In order for this to work, we have to be thoughtful about one another, because we do want our kids back in the building, but we also want them to come back safely. And that is our commitment to not only our kids, but our commitment to you all, that we want to give them the best experience possible, knowing that there are going to be some major changes, but their safety and well-being is the priority for all of us. Keep in mind, pre-COVID times, COVID times, it is going to be a little bit of a different Spark than what your kids are accustomed to. Let them know. You have to be the first people to let them know that things will be different if you choose face-to-face. I appreciate you guys spending time. I'll take any last or remaining questions. Nathan.
So there was a question that was posed privately. It just said, is there any way for us to do an internal poll of parents before the deadline so we can start making better plans or being able to plan a little bit better for classes?
An internal poll. I don't want to, I'll be honest, I can't commit to that, because we're going to be doing, if we were to do that, we'd want all the parents to somehow contribute. We'd have to look at the data, disaggregate the data, and then actually figure out how many students would be coming virtually and face-to-face. And right now, I think it's just such a busy time. And because the district is already doing that, I'm going to ask that you guys complete the intent, the declaration of intent. You can do that on your own through a parent-generated something, but from the school perspective, I don't think that we can literally do that right now, given all of the things that we have to do moving forward. There's no way we would be able to get you that information quickly. All right, I hope I've been super honest, and I hope I've been super transparent. And just know that we do love your kids. We do miss your kids. We miss seeing you guys. This is not easy for anyone, but our new mantra is we can do hard things, and we will do it, and we will do it well. So if there are no other questions, I appreciate your time. Thanks for everything, and we will be in touch soon.
Mr. Harness,
Yeah.
they're asking about tomorrow's session at 6 p.m. conflicting with APS's town hall.
Yeah, I saw that. I feel like we put our session out first, so I think APS needs to change their time. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, Mr. Harness, they don't have to attend if they attended today, because it'll be the same information.
Today, you don't have to come to tomorrow. And remember, both sessions are going to be recorded. APS's will be recorded. Springdale Parks will be recorded. So you'll be able to get the information from both town halls. All right. Anyone else? Anything else? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out.